Welcome to Blender. This is a little tour of the interface and we're going to create a really simple model. You can follow along, take notes, listen for your keyboard shortcuts, all that good stuff. All right, so when you first open Blender, these are the things that you're going to see on the interface. It is courteous enough to give you a starting camera. This symbol right here is the camera. You get a point light and you get a cube, all of which can be shown on the right-hand side of the screen under your scene collection. Don't get too overwhelmed about all the windows and stuff. We will get to it. So right now, what's happening is we are in what's called object mode. So anytime you're just kind of moving around the screen, looking at an object, we just call it object mode. The other thing you need to be aware of is how to navigate this world. So what I'm doing right now is orbiting around where the cursor is. This little object right here is the cursor. So in order to do that, I just hold the middle mouse button and just move your mouse around. Okay, you can also pan. So you do that middle mouse button, only this time you're also holding shift. So you can move around. Pretty straightforward. Most of your motions are going to be like that. Let's see what else we need to do here. So if we want to edit this cube, we want to go into up here where object mode is and say edit mode. What happens when you enter edit mode is that you start seeing things like vertices or edges or faces. Right now I've got it in vertice mode, so you can actually change what you're selecting. If I want to do faces, then I select this face. So now I can click on a face and we got stuff. Okay. If I want to just start moving stuff, there's keyboard shortcuts for this as well. So if I just want to move a selected face, that keyboard shortcut is G as in Gregory. Okay. So I press G and now I can just move stuff around. Now, if I'm doing this and I want it to move a certain direction, I can type the name of the plane. So if I want to go in the Y direction, I just type Y and it gives me that green line, which shows you Y. If I want to go in the X, right, you can see the X. If I want to go in Z, you can see the Z. If I want to get out of that, I press escape or just click where I want to move it. Now, there may be times where you want to rotate stuff. The keyboard shortcut for that is R. So if I press R, now I can start to rotate it. So it always rotates in the plane that you pressed R in. Of course, we can also do X, Y, and Z here as well. Okay, so I'm going to exit out of that. The last transformation we want to do is scale. So I'm actually going to hop back into object mode, select my whole cube, and now we're going to scale. So over here we see scale. You can press S on the keyboard. So I press S and I move my mouse and now I'm scaling. Again, you can also do this in the X direction, the Y direction, or the Z direction. Okay. Pretty simple stuff. So let's go ahead and we're going to start creating our first model. So I'm going to delete this cube. So if you select it while you're in object mode, you can press delete and it will disappear. We can go ahead and leave this camera and this light. They're just hanging out. They'll help us out in a little bit. All right. So the first thing we want to do, so what we're going to model is a traffic cone. So I figure this is a really simple shape. If you want to try something different, that's up to you. So the first thing we're going to do now that we've deleted our cube, actually, no, what we're first going to do is we're going to file, save as. Okay, right now it's kind of mad at me because I haven't saved, or I'm going to save over this one. Please do not leave it as untitled, because then you won't know what you're doing. So I went ahead and called this one traffic test. Okay, so save as traffic test. It's going to yell at me because I overwrote it, but here we go. So if I want to add something, I can right click. Actually, no, I'm not. Shift A, and that is the shortcut for add. So Shift A, and you get this whole list here. So under mesh, I'm going to say plane. We're going to just do a regular old plane. So here's the base of our traffic cone. So I'm actually going to make it a little bigger. So I'm going to press S for scale and make it bigger, so we can kind of see what we're doing. Now this is not, I mean, world scales in Blender are somewhat meaningless. You can switch it up and do actual meters, actual units. You can do actual units, but for now, let's just stick with this. It doesn't have to be perfect. All right, so I want to go into edit mode. So the quickest, you can go up here to the drop down and go to edit mode, or you can press tab. Quickest way to get there. So now I've got my face here. So select. So what we want to do, it's a flat plane, right? So what we need to do is we need to make it not flat. So what we want to do now is we want to extrude. So that is an operation called extrude. So you can come over here and say extrude region. So we're going to extrude. We're not going to go too crazy because this is the base of our cone. Okay, so now we have like a little platform. Now, one of the main things in computer graphics, I'm going to go back to object mode, is that we have polygons. So right now, the only polygons I have, or the only faces I have, are just the plain, you know, the front, side, top, and bottom. Problem is, I can't really do a whole lot with this. So what I need to do is create more geometry. So when I say to create more geometry, what I'm talking about is I'm creating more polygons. I'm going to split this up into more polygons so there's more vertices and I can create more stuff with it. So you can start, one of the easiest ways to create more geometry is to do a loop cut. So what is that? So I'm going to go back to edit mode. So what a loop cut is it just cuts the geometry in a loop around the whole object. So if I hover, you can kind of see like an X-ray version of where that cut's going to go. So I'm just going to go ahead and hover here, cut it once, and then we're going to cut it over here. And now I have 4 instead of just the 1. Okay, and it also splits it on the side. Okay. So let's add a couple more of these just to be all nice and pretty. Okay. And I'm going to add one on the edge here. So we have a split. So part of the reason I want to do all this too is we want to smooth out our geometry. Okay, so right now what we're going to do, so now we've got all these lines. Well, hold on. Got all these nice lines. I'm going to go back into object mode, and now we're going to start worrying about these guys over here. So we're going to go to modifiers. So what we want to do is add a modifier to this to smooth it out. So you want to go to add modifier and then go to subdivision surface. So we're taking this and we're cutting it into, we're subdividing it even more. Okay. So notice what happens. It kind of does a weird thing to our edges here. So it's just smoothing everything out. If we want to maintain that square shape, we have to add more loops. So here's what we're going to do. Now that we have the subdivision, we're just going to let it be over there. We're going to go back into edit mode. And when you go into edit mode, you can see the original geometry, but we want to smooth this out. So I'm going to add more loop cuts. So I'm going to come over here to loop cut or shift spacebar, supposedly, or command R. Okay, command R gets you there too. And I'm going to go to these edges and I'm going to create more loop cuts. And you see what happens is now it's more square. So we're going to do that twice on each edge. Make it all nice and purty. Okay, I think on that edge it's fine. We're going to go back into object mode. So that's the simplest way here to get our smoothness. All right. Okay, so now we have our base. We want to actually make the cone. So we're going to go back into edit mode. And what we want to do here is we want to move. So we're going to look at it from the top. So we're going to click Z so we can look at it from the top. We want to move this center here. Hold on and get out of that tool. This center here needs to be more rounded. Okay, it doesn't have to be a perfect circle, but we want to change the shape here so that it's more rounded. We also need to scale it so that it's bigger. So that's what we're going to do next. So I'm going to come up here and go to face mode so that we're only selecting faces. I'm going to grab this one, hold shift to grab more than one, this one, this one, this one. Okay, so now I've got those four. Now I want to scale it, so you can go ahead and press S and you can scale it up a little bit, kind of to the proportion of a traffic cone. Okay, of course, now you notice it moves these vertices around. So what we're going to do here, we're going to come back and go to vertice mode. And we're going to grab these vertices and we're going to press G and move them and create a kind of circular-ish looking shape, like a low poly circle. Okay, it's not going to be perfect. That's fine. We're just learning. Okay, and I can pull this out a little bit more. Get that nice circle shape. It's all really what you want it to look like in the end. Okay, we're just going to call it good enough. Okay, doesn't have to be perfect right now. All right, so now we got this circular shape. When we extrude, we're going to extrude this up to create our cone. When we do that, it's not going to be as faceted. We're going to still have that smooth subdivision. Okay, so I'm going to go back to face mode. We're going to select these four faces, hold shift, and then we are going to extrude. The keyboard shortcut for that is the letter E. So it's extruding in the Z direction. And you see what happens is it shows our geometry, but it also shows our cone. Okay, we can make it tall. Just make it as tall as you want to at this point. It looks kind of funky. Do not panic. We're going to make it better. All right, so we still have this faces selected. We're going to hold S. We're going to shrink it down. Give it a, oh, shoot. Oh, no. Be careful with it because it's kind of touchy. Okay, so now we have a very rudimentary cone. So we want to probably smooth this out some. So what are we going to do? We're going to add loop cuts. Okay. So Command R, more loop cuts. So I'm going to add one in the middle. See how it smooths it out. Or you can also move it up and down. We're going to do it right there. I'm going to add another one. Okay. Kind of squish it down towards the bottom here. And then I'm just going to add another one. Actually, I'm just going to make the tool active because I need more. Okay. So if you don't let go, you can actually slide it down. I'm just going to shove one right in here. Make this nice. I don't want to do that one. So we want to have some more of these. Okay, smooth it out some. And we want to do one at the top. So if we know that traffic cones kind of have this rounded top. So I'm going to put one up here and another one right here. Kind of make that look more traffic cone-y. More traffic-y. Okay. Now, what's cool is I can always, before I say yes to this modifier, I can actually change the levels. So if I want it to be, oops, I don't That's animating. If I want it to be smoother, I can make it smoother. So now I up the levels to 4. I'm just going to leave it at 2, maybe 3. Okay, make it pretty. Okay. We got all these subdivisions. So it does not create this geometry until you apply this. So if we wanted to create all this mesh, we'll just say apply. So we're not going to do that just yet. All right, let's go back to edit mode. So if you're kind of familiar with traffic cones, you know that there's like this little hole in the top so they can stack them. Okay, so we're going to go back to selection mode and we're going to select our 4 faces one more time. So I'm going to extrude it and we're going to scale that in. Okay, so we have like, you know, a lip to work with here. All right, and then I'm going to extrude it again, but this time I'm going to pull it down inside of our cone. So extrude, it's going to look a little funky. That's okay. So we go down, we don't have to go super far. Okay, if we want to smooth that out, of course, we got to do what now? Yeah, that's right. Add more loop cuts. Now you're catching on. Okay, so it makes that shape really smooth. Unfortunately, it's not being forthcoming about showing what it looks like, but you get the idea. At least I hope. Really hope. Okay. So I'm going to go back to object mode. Now we have a traffic cone. Pretty simple. You can tweak this as much as you want. You can make it smooth. You can go nuts. Let me open up a previous traffic cone that I made before this. We go ahead and save. It's like a cooking show. File open recent. We want to go to traffic cone.blend. So here's one that I made previously. We go back into modeling mode. So you can see that I actually, whoa, I have a lot of stuff going on here. I actually applied the modifier, and so now it's got this nice mesh going on. I also kind of pulled off some more geometry and created this, those little reflective bits. Okay. I also created another plane for it to stand out against, and I used the camera and the light that's already in here to create a render. So we're going to do that next time.